Praveen, thanks for joining us today and for talking to us about your experience working with Enkel. You started working with Enkel in the beginning of 2019 when you were the CEO at PHEMI. To kick things off, can you tell us a bit about PHEMI?
Sure. First of all, thanks, Robin. Thanks for having me on. PHEMI was a small startup. When I joined, we were about 35 people. We addressed privacy, security, and governance, and our software was purpose-built for big data systems. As such, the software could address requirements posed by GDPR and other similar privacy regulations that were coming up.
Okay, so tell us a bit about yourself and your background.
So I'm a professional accountant. I am a CPA, CMA, CA, but have been involved in various businesses, primarily technology startups for the last 25 plus years. I've co-founded a few technology companies, but have been fortunate enough to work with amazing teams. As such, my companies have generally grown exponentially. Being responsible for strategy, operations, and finance, I focus on our team's core strengths and keeping agility by bringing in resources just in time. And that could be, any resource, whether it's staff, whether it's cash, whether it's space, etc.
Okay. And so what does a day in your life look like, or your work life?
There's no typical same day. In a technology startup, environment is changing by the hour. And I may be exaggerating a bit, but yeah, generally it is. What I mean is that while all businesses are dynamic, in a startup, one has to react quickly, shut out the noise, and constantly evaluate your path and do the necessary. Cash and resources, especially human capital, is scarce. And you have to make sure that you're using every resource to make it count. So my typical day varies from, revisiting and tuning strategy and operational plan, fighting fires, obviously, but also addressing customer issues. You have to keep the satisfaction levels high. Customers are not going to IBM or coming to a startup because they see value, and you have to prove that value to them every day. On top of it, obviously, you have the responsibility of the team. So I meet my team leaders. And even though I'm not technical, I do try to get into some technical meetings, especially if they evolve around customer deliverables. As I said, for me, customer is the biggest important element of my existence or of my company's existence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what are some of the challenges that you were facing before you started working with Enkel?
So, the biggest challenge in a startup is, as I mentioned earlier, how do you deploy your resources to get that maximum bang for the buck, the maximum benefit? At PHEMI, when I joined, I realized our finance and admin staff were underutilized. We were wasting resources on items which weren't our core business or didn't contribute anything to our core business. I wanted to outsource all these activities, so I started with bookkeeping and financial statement presentation. These are mere clerical work. It's not our core business. So give this away to somebody whose core business is to deliver these things. So otherwise, what was happening, I would be spending my time in looking at disbursements to make sure they're not duplicated, or we're not overpaying or underpaying somebody, or are we collecting everything that we're supposed to collect?
Okay. So what made you decide to outsource versus, you kind of talked a little bit about that, but what made you decide to outsource some of these functions?
Sure. Again, as I mentioned, for underutilized resources, I wanted to remove the unnecessary headcount. I was under a lot of pressure to make us more efficient. And I still wanted timely financial reporting, and not just timely, but accurate as well. So it's not a requirement just because we were venture-backed, but also you cannot run a business without accurate reports and timely reports. So these were some of the challenges, cost cutting or cost benefits, whether they were implicit or explicit, and also making sure you get timely reports. You're not stuck because my bookkeeper is sick or my clerical staff didn't show up to work, etc.
Okay. And did you have any concerns or reservations about outsourcing some of these core financial functions?
Yeah, the biggest concern that I have initially I had when I first started working with outsourcing, and whether it's technology or financials, as I said, is confidentiality. Can you keep things confidential? And frankly, I've learned, I feel that it's the same whether you are internal or external. It just depends on the solidity of your team and their understanding of the confidential requirements. So that's, I would say, was the biggest concern when outsourcing.
Okay. And how did you learn about or find out about Enkel?
So,
had you worked with Enkel before?
Yes, I had. I actually started Enkel in 2014 timeframe. I had at that point, I'd asked my CFO to look at outsourcing all these clerical functions. And I wanted actually at that time, it was a head of finance, director of finance for me. And I tasked Lawrence to look at how do we make sure that we get timely and accurate financials, but your time frees up and we get rid of our clerical staff and you can actually become more of a partner in business to me, do more analysis, do more reporting in that time, and the value add that as a professional accountant she could provide me.
Okay.
So she came up with 2 or 3 names and she led the effort. She interviewed everybody. And also, being in the industry, I was aware of some of the players in the industry, so I did suggest some names. And that's how we came across Enkel. And we felt with Enkel, we felt most comfortable, put it this way.
Okay. So it sounds like you were working with Enkel before you went to PHEMI at a previous company. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, sorry. So yes, I started at Quick Mobile is when I first brought them in.
Oh, okay.
As I mentioned, that process happened in what I just mentioned, the process that happened in Quick Mobile. Then I also, because I had success, why mess with success? I brought them in Terramera as well. And then finally at PHEMI.
Okay. So you've worked with Enkel in 3 separate companies.
That's right.
Okay. So what are the highlights of working with Enkel? How has Enkel solved the problems that you were dealing with in these different businesses?
Sure. So, at PHEMI, my biggest thing was I was able to reduce my spend by $75,000 a year. To make sure that you have proper internal controls, etc., you need different people doing different tasks, and what we call in finance lingo as division of duties. So for that, you need minimum time from different people. And that's where the cost came in. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, I did not have to depend on one person where the person is sick, so I don't get the reports, or my payroll run doesn't happen, or at the last minute, I have to do the payroll myself because payroll cannot be delayed by a day just because somebody is sick.
Mm-hmm.
So all that noise, as I mentioned earlier, went away. And it also helped my senior finance team to become true partners to me and give me the analysis, not just to me, but even to my other management team, what we needed to run our business.
Okay. And so were there any specific things about working with Enkel that made a big difference beyond what you've talked about, or have we pretty much covered that?
Yeah, I think we've covered that. Just, we went a little bit further, and we were able to even outsource some of the shred paperwork, accumulating costs. They had the data, so they could prepare these reports for us. We even utilized Enkel for our year-end auditing, working papers, etc. Again, they had the data; they could easily come up with that. So it became more of a clerical task.
Okay, so last question for you. What were the results that you got from working with Enkel? I know you mentioned a savings of $75,000 per year. What other kinds of results? Was there time savings or other kinds of savings?
Time savings. And we didn't have to worry about the availability of staff, as I said. So we gave them a timeline And Enkel has several, they don't have just one or two people, they have others. So if somebody's sick, they can give it to someone else, but they could meet our timelines. Being a venture-backed company, I had to issue financials on a predetermined time, and there was no flexibility there. Even though it's a small company, etc., and people generally understand, but I wanted to have that discipline. They also helped us focus on our core business without worrying about clerical aspects of compiling historical records, working papers, etc. And by doing that, by freeing up these resources, we could apply the capital saved or the money saved towards hiring developers where the business needed more resources, let's say. And other things I've already mentioned. So
okay. That's awesome. Thank you for that. So that wraps up my questions for you. So my last question is, if you go to a new company, will you come back and bring Enkel in again?
Definitely. I honestly believe that a company should stick to their core business. Mm-hmm. And I've been running software companies, so I'll talk about software. Software, doing bookkeeping is not your core business.
Yeah.
Developing product, selling product, marketing that product is your core business. Yeah. And that's where you need to focus your resources on. And honestly, there are implicit costs and explicit costs. Explicit are the salaries and so on. But implicit is when somebody leaves, you got to train somebody again. Mm-hmm. You lose that IP. So why have all that in-house for a non-core activity?
Yeah, makes total sense. Well, Praveen, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you carving out some time to talk to us about your experience working with Enkel.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.